The sprawling mansion of Graceland, usually bustling with activity, was quiet. It was late past midnight, and the last of Elvis's entourage had finally called it a day. The lights were dimmed, and a hushed silence had settled over the grand rooms, a silence so profound it felt like a presence all its own. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, found himself alone in his living room, a half-empty glass of iced tea on the table beside him. Outside, the Memphis night air was warm, carrying the faint scent of honeysuckle from the gardens. Inside, the air conditioning hummed softly, a counterpoint to the thrumming in his chest. He was surrounded by opulence, by the trophies of his unimaginable success, gold records gleaming on the walls, awards stacked like silent sentinels. He had everything a man could ever want, or so the world believed. Yet tonight, an emptiness echoed in the vastness of his home, a void that no amount of fame or fortune could ever fill. He ran a hand through his dark hair, the familiar ache in his heart stirring once more. It wasn't a sharp pain, not anymore, but a dull, persistent throb like a phantom limb that still yearned for what it had lost. His mind drifted, as it often did when the world quieted down, back to his beginnings, to the small shotgun shack in Tupelo, Mississippi. Back to his Mama Gladys with her gentle eyes and fierce love, and his Daddy Vernon always working hard, always trying to make ends meet. And then his thoughts settled on the one who was always there, yet never truly present, his twin Jessie Garin Presley, born just 35 minutes before him, yet destined to live only a few brief hours. Elvis had grown up with a ghost, a loving shadow that walked alongside him through every step of his extraordinary life. He had never met Jessie, never felt his tiny hand, never heard his cry, but he had felt his absence every single day. Mama had told him stories, gentle whispers of the day they were born, how Jessie was still quiet, a little angel already gone to heaven, while he, Elvis, had come into the world kicking and screaming, full of life. "You got all the life, son," Mama would say, her voice soft with a mixture of sorrow and pride. "You got to live for two." That phrase, "live for two," had become a mantra, a silent burden, a driving force. It pushed him through hungry days, through rejection, through moments of doubt. It fueled his ambition, made him sing with a fire that burned brighter. But tonight the weight of it felt heavier than usual. He had lived for two. He had achieved more than 2 lifetimes could hold. But was it enough? Was Jessie proud? Did he even know a deep sigh escaped his lips? He walked over to the grand piano, running his fingers lightly over the cool ivory keys, but didn't play. Music, his greatest comfort, felt distant tonight, like a melody he couldn't quite grasp. He yearned for something else, something deeper than the fleeting cheers of a crowd, something more tangible than the fleeting image on a movie screen. He stopped in front of a small antique desk tucked away in a corner of the living room, a place where he sometimes paid bills or scribbled song lyrics. His eyes fell upon a stack of pristine cream-colored stationery and a matching pen, elegant and unused. A strange impulse, sudden and undeniable, washed over him. It wasn't about fame or fortune or anything of this world. It was about connection, about bridging a gap that had existed for 30-some years. Picked up the pen, the cool metal feeling surprisingly comforting in his hand. He looked at the blank paper, smooth and inviting. Quiet voice, a whisper from deep within his soul, told him what he needed to do. Not for the world, not for the fans, not for history, but for himself and for Jessie. He had to write. He had to finally speak to the brother he had never known yet loved, with every fiber of his being. The decision felt heavy, yet profoundly right. He pulled out a chair, sat down, and placed the paper before him. The silence of Graceland now filled with the anticipation of unspoken words. The blank sheet of paper seemed to stare back at him, an empty canvas waiting for a lifetime of unsaid word. Elvis's hand, steady when gripping a microphone, trembled slightly as he picked up the pen again. What do you say to a brother who never drew breath? How do you sum up 30? Some years of a life lived, a life he had in many ways lived for both of them. He leaned back in the chair, his gaze drifting across the ornate room. His eyes landed on a small framed photograph. On a side table, a sepia-toned image faded with time. It was a picture of him as a newborn, tiny and swaddled, lying in his mother's arms. But next to him, where another bundle should have been, was just an empty space on the blanket. Mama had kept it as a reminder, a quiet acknowledgement of the twin she had lost. He had grown up seeing that picture, understanding its silent story long before he understood the words. He remembered Mama's stories about that day, told in hushed, reverent tones. How the doctor had shaken his head, regret etched on his face as he delivered Jesse. How a tiny, still form had been wrapped and laid beside Mama before he, Elvis, had burst forth full of life and vigor. "You were a fighter, son," she'd said, her eyes misty, right from the start. He'd always wondered if some of Jesse's fighting spirit, his unlived energy, had transferred to him. It was a comforting thought, a way to explain the relentless drive that had carried him from Tupelo to the pinnacle of the world stage. He thought about the burden of living for two. It wasn't a burden Mama had placed on him in anger or guilt, but in love. It was a quiet expectation that had shaped his every choice, every performance. When the crowds roared, he often felt a phantom presence beside him. An unseen brother who should have been sharing the triumph. When he felt lonely, isolated by fame, he'd wish Jesse was there. A pure, unbiased confidant who knew him from the very beginning. His gaze returned to the blank paper. It wasn't just writing, it was opening a wound he had kept carefully bandaged for decades. A wound that had never truly healed, only scarred over. He took a deep breath, the air cool in his lungs. This wasn't a song where he could hide behind melody and metaphor. This was raw, unfiltered, straight from his soul. He imagined Jesse not as a still, silent infant, but as a boy, a young man, a peer. What would he have looked like? Would he have shared Elvis's love for music, for fast cars, for flashy clothes? Would he have been quieter, more studious? Or would he have been the wilder one, the daredevil, leaving Elvis to be the steady influence? The possibilities were endless, and each one brought a fresh wave of longing. His fingers tightened around the pen. He had to start somewhere. The first words were always the hardest, especially when they carried the weight of a lifetime. He leaned forward, the pen hovering over the creamy paper. He closed his eyes for a moment, picturing that faded photograph, imagining a flicker of life, a breath where there had been none. And then, with a resolve that came from the deepest part of his being, he touched the pen to the paper. The ink flowed smoothly dark against the light surface. He wrote the words that had been stirring in his heart for so long, words he had whispered only to the night air, words that now found their tangible form. My dearest brother, Jesse, it's late here at Graceland, and the house is quiet. Too quiet. Sometimes, tonight more than ever, I wish you were here to break the silence. I know it sounds crazy writing to you like this, but I figure if anyone can hear me across the veil, it's you. We were tied together even before we breathed. Twin souls meant to share a journey. Only our paths diverged almost before they began. He paused, a lump forming in his throat. The words felt small, inadequate to express the immensity of his feelings, but they were a start. A beginning to a conversation he had longed to have for a lifetime. Conversation with the brother who had always been there, just out of reach. The silence of Graceland felt less empty now, filled with the promise of words yet to come. Elvis's hand continued to move, the words flowing more freely. Now a dam breaking after years of containment. He wrote about the fundamental unfairness of it all, the cosmic lottery that had granted him life and denied it to his brother. My dearest brother, Jesse. I've thought about that day, January 8th, 1935, a million times. Mama told me every detail, her voice always soft, filled with a sorrow that never really left her. You came first, they said. A perfect little boy. But you didn't draw breath. Just 35 minutes later, I came along, kicking and screaming, full of the life you never got to have. It's a strange thing, isn't it? To know that someone so fundamentally connected to you existed, yet didn't truly live in this world. I think about what that must have been like for Mama and Daddy. To hold one perfect baby who never cried, never opened his eyes, and then moments later to hold another, squalling and vibrant, a mirror image in every way but one. The joy of my birth must have been tangled with the crushing grief of losing you. That sorrow, that quiet ache, it always hovered in our little shotgun shack, a part of our family. As much as the furniture. He paused, remembering Mama's quiet moments, her faraway gaze. He'd learned early on not to ask too many questions about Jessie, sensing the pain it brought. But he'd also learned by osmosis about the deep bond of twins, even though separated by life and death. He'd felt it a whisper in his soul, a sense of incompleteness that no earthly success could fill. Mama would often look at me, especially when I was little, with this particular expression in her eyes. It was love, pure and unwavering, but mixed with something else, something wistful. I knew even as a child she was seeing you too, imagining what you might have become. Sometimes I'd catch her staring at my hand, tracing the lines, and I'd know she was thinking about your hand, the one she never got to hold as it grasped for life. I guess that's where the feeling started, the one I've carried my whole life. This sense that I wasn't just living for me, I was living for you too. It wasn't a burden, not really, but a responsibility. A silent promise to make sure your brief existence, even if only for a few hours, wasn't forgotten. That your potential, whatever it might have been, would somehow be fulfilled through me. I've always wondered, Jessie, what kind of boy you would have been. Would you have been quiet or boisterous, like me? Would you have loved music? Would we have shared secrets, dreamt wild dreams together, maybe even gotten into trouble? I'd imagine us running through the fields in Tupelo, 2 peas in a pod inseparable. It's a picture I've painted in my mind 1,000 times, a life we should have had, and then the guilt washes over me heavy and cold. Why me and not you? Why did I get to breathe, to feel the sun on my face, to hear Mama's lullabies, and you didn't? It's a question that has no answer, I know, but it gnaws at me. Did you even have a chance? Was there a flicker, a moment, when you felt something before you slipped away? Sometimes I lay awake at night, trying to imagine those few hours you were here, trying to piece together your fleeting journey. He gripped the pen tighter, his knuckles white. The questions poured out, raw and desperate. He had carried these thoughts in the deepest recesses of his heart, unspoken for decades. To see them on paper black and white was both terrifying and liberating. It's crushing, Jessie. Absolutely crushing to think of all the things you never got to experience. Taste of Mama's cooking, the sound of a blues song on the radio, the feeling of a cool breeze on a hot day, all the simple everyday things that make up a life. And then there's my life, full of noise and light, and more than any one person could ever handle. It feels so unbalanced. He stopped writing, his eyes blurred. He wiped them with the back of his hand. He had wanted this to be a conversation, but so far it was just an outpouring of grief. Yet even in the sorrow there was a strange comfort. He was finally truly speaking to Jessie, and for the first time, in a long time, the silence of Graceland didn't feel quite so empty. It felt like a space for listening, a space for two. Elvis stared at the words he had just written, his raw emotions laid bare on the page. The ache in his chest was still there, but a different feeling was emerging. A quiet understanding, a realization that Jessie's presence, though unseen, had always been a guiding force. My dearest brother Jesse, growing up, even though I never saw you, never heard your voice, you were always there, not as a ghost in a scary way, but like a quiet shadow walking beside me. Mama and Daddy didn't talk about you much after those first few years, I guess because it hurt too much. But your name, Jessie Guerin, it was always spoken with a reverence, a softness that let me know you were important, just as important as I was. I think your absence made me more sensitive. In a way, I noticed things others didn't. I felt things deeper. Maybe that's why music got into my soul so early. It was a way to express all those feelings, all those questions I had about you, about life, about why things were the way they were. I'd sit on the porch steps humming tunes, and I'd imagine you sitting right there beside me, tapping your foot, maybe even singing along. He remembered those early days in Tupelo, the dust, the heat, the constant struggle to make ends meet. He remembered his first guitar, a cheap, worn-out instrument, but to him it was a magic wand. He'd spend hours teaching himself chords, mimicking the blues and gospel singers he heard on the radio, pouring his heart into every note. When I first started playing guitar, Jesse, I'd always think of you. I'd wonder if you would have picked it up too. Would we have harmonized? Would we have dreamt of playing on stages bigger than our little church hall? When I sang gospel songs, the ones Mama loves so much, I often felt a strange, comforting presence. It was like you were there in the notes, in the vibrations, pushing me to sing louder, to feel deeper. We didn't have much. You know that money was scarce, and hard times were a constant companion. But I always felt this drive, this fierce need to make something of myself, to lift Mama and Daddy out of poverty. And a part of that drive, a big part, came from you. It was like I had to achieve enough for two, had to make enough noise for two, so your silence wouldn't be in vain. It was a silent motivator, a push that never let me settle for less. I remember one time when I was just a kid, maybe 5 or 6. I was out in the yard playing and I fell and scraped my knee pretty bad. Mama came running, all worried, and she picked me up and held me tight. She said, "My strong boy, my healthy boy, you got to be strong for both of us." And even then, young as I was, I understood. It wasn't about being strong physically. It was about being strong in spirit, resilient, carrying on. And I tried, Jesse, I really tried to live up to that unspoken expectation. He pictured himself as that little boy, dirty knees and tear-streaked face, clutching his mother, absorbing her words like a sponge. It wasn't a burden, not truly. It was a sense of purpose, a quiet resolve that shaped his very being. There were times, too, when I felt like you were watching over me. Crazy, huh? But when I was in a tight spot, or when I felt lost, a strange calm would wash over me. It was like a little nudge, a quiet voice inside me saying, "Keep going, Elvis, you got this." I always attributed it to you, my silent guardian angel, my big brother, even though I was the one who survived. It's a strange paradox, Jesse. You never took a step in this world yet. You've influenced every single one of mine. Your unlived life became a part of my living, breathing existence. It's hard to explain, but it's as real as the air I breathe. You were the reason I pushed harder, dreamed bigger, even when it seemed impossible. He paused, letting the words sink in. He realized that the crushing weight wasn't just about the sorrow of loss, but the immense, intangible impact Jesse had on him. It was a bittersweet realization, acknowledging the profound influence of a life that never fully began, yet shaped everything. The memories, once tinged with only sadness, now felt threaded with a quiet strength, a sense of enduring connection that transcended time and even life itself. Elvis felt a lightness in his chest as he continued to write. The act of putting these thoughts onto paper, addressing Jesse directly, was like lifting a heavy blanket he hadn't even realized he was carrying. He moved on to his musical journey, the path that had taken him from the dusty roads of Tupelo to the dazzling lights of the world stage. My dearest brother Jesse, I remember getting my first real guitar. It was a cheap second-hand acoustic, but to me it was like finding a treasure map. I spent hours hunched over it, my fingers sore, learning every chord, every rhythm. And with every strum, every hummed melody, I imagined you there. I'd close my eyes and picture you sitting on the bed beside me, listening, maybe even nodding your head to the beat. When I first started singing for people at church, at school talent shows, even just on the street corner, I was shy. Jesse, really shy. Mama had to push me sometimes. But once I got going, once the music took over, something else happened. It felt like more than just me up there. It felt like I was singing for two. Like your voice, the one that was never heard was somehow woven into mine. And that gave me courage. He recalled the nervous energy, the fluttering in his stomach before every performance. But once he hit the first note, once he felt the rhythm take hold, it was as if he was transported. And in those moments, the presence of his unseen twin was strongest. I remember when I first walked into Sun Records, that tiny little studio in Memphis. I was so nervous my knees were practically knocking. But I had this feeling, this strong urge to lay down a track to hear my voice on a record. And as I sang, as I felt the music move through me, it was like you were in that small room too, cheering me on, willing me to succeed. When Mr. Phillips told me he liked my sound, that it was something different, I didn't just feel happy for me. I felt happy for us. Then came the road. The endless touring, playing dives in small towns, sleeping in the car. It was exhausting, but it was thrilling. Every roar of the crowd, every cheer. It felt like a victory not just for me, but for the dream we never knew we shared. I'd look out at the sea of faces and I'd always imagine yours somewhere among them. Smiling, proud. Kept me going when I was tired, when I missed home, when the doubts started to creep in. Sometimes on stage, when the energy was electric, and the crowd was singing along, a wave of bittersweet emotion would hit me. This incredible joy, this immense gratitude, but also a deep yearning. I'd think, man, Jesse, you should be here. You should be feeling this. We should be sharing this. It was a constant reminder that for all the dizzying heights I reached, there was an inherent incompleteness to it all. He remembered moments when the spotlight felt too hot, the expectations too heavy. When the fame grew so quickly it threatened to swallow him whole. In those times he often thought of the simple innocence of his childhood, the quiet purity that Jesse's memory embodied. I confess, Jesse, there were times when the weight of it all, the fame, the pressure, it felt too heavy, and I'd wonder, what would you think of all this? Would you understand? Would you tell me to slow down, to remember where I came from? Sometimes I felt like I was carrying not just my own dreams, but your unspoken ones too. And it was a lot more than a man should have to bear. But then just as quickly the thought would turn, you were never a burden. You were the reason. You were the silent whisper that pushed me forward, that kept me true to myself. You were the compass that kept me grounded even when the world around me went wild. And for that, for being my unseen partner in this crazy journey, I am more grateful than words can say. He finished the paragraph, feeling a profound sense of connection. The music, the fame, the journey, it all had a deeper meaning because of Jesse. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about fulfilling a destiny for two, about weaving a quiet, forgotten life into the vibrant tapestry of his own. The letter was no longer just an outpouring of grief. It was becoming a testament to an unbreakable bond. Elvis paused, letting the memories of those early touring days swirl in his mind before pushing into the present the overwhelming reality of his fame. He thought of the crowds, the sheer force of their adulation, and how paradoxically it often amplified his deepest loneliness. My dearest brother, Jesse, you wouldn't believe the noise. The roar of the crowd, the thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of screaming fans. It's deafening, exhilarating, like being hit by a wave of pure, unadulterated energy. When I walk out onto that stage, the lights blinding, the music blasting, it's like nothing else in the world. And in those moments, I am Elvis Presley, the king, larger than life. But when I get back to the dressing room, or especially when I come home to Graceland after a long tour, that silence I talked about, it's even louder. It's a strange thing, isn't it? To be surrounded by so much love and adoration, to be known by millions and yet feel completely alone. More alone than I ever felt in that little shack in Tupelo. He remembered standing backstage, the thunderous applause just outside the curtain, and feeling a sudden, intense pang of longing. He'd imagined Jesse by his side, his eyes wide with wonder, sharing in the spectacle. It was a fantasy he clung to, a silent comfort amidst the chaos. I try to picture your face in the crowd, Jesse, I really do. When the lights hit just right, and I see a flash of a kind smile or a look of pure joy, I sometimes imagine it's you there, in the audience, watching your twin brother. And a part of me, the part that still believes in miracles, wishes I could reach out and pull you onto the stage, introduce you to the world. Folks, this is my brother Jesse. He's here with me. But then reality hits hard and cold. You're not there. You never got to experience the thrill of a stadium concert, the rush of the music, the feeling of thousands of hearts beating in time with your own. You never got to see the world beyond Tupelo, never got to ride in a Cadillac, never got to wear a rhinestone jumpsuit, and that's when the crushing feeling really takes hold. All these triumphs, all these incredible moments, they're inherently incomplete because you're not here to share them. He paused, a wave of sadness washing over him. The fame which had been his salvation often felt like a cage separating him from the very people he craved connection with. And Jesse, the one person who would have known him instinctively, was forever out of reach. I've met so many people, Jesse, so many faces, so many hands shaken, so many smiles, but how many of them truly know me? The boy from Tupelo, the one who just wanted to sing, the one who still carries a quiet ache in his soul for the twin he lost. Very few, most just see Elvis, the legend, the king. And sometimes that feels like a heavy mask I can never take off, the isolation brother. When you're at the top, there's fewer and fewer people you can truly trust, truly talk to. Everyone wants something. Everyone has an agenda. And I find myself wishing more often than I care to admit that you were here. You'd be the one who didn't want anything from me, except for me to be happy, to be myself. You'd be the one who knew the real Elvis, the one who didn't need a spotlight to feel seen. Sometimes when I'm singing my heart out on stage, pouring every ounce of emotion into a song, I feel like I'm singing for you, like I'm trying to bridge that gap to send the music, the joy, the life across whatever divide separates us. It's my way of sharing the life you didn't get, of making sure your spirit, your essence isn't lost. He placed the pen down, the last words lingering in the air, heavy with unspoken longing. The roaring crowds, the adoring fans, they were a testament to his success. But they could never fill the silent void left by his brother. Truth was, amidst all the noise, the whisper of Jesse's name was often the only sound he truly heard. A constant reminder of what was missing, what could never be replaced. Elvis picked up the pen again, his thoughts turning to his personal life, the relationships. He had always been searching for a piece of Jesse in others. My dearest brother, Jesse, I've had a lot of people in my life, Jesse, a lot of friends, a lot of women. But there's always been this missing piece, this void that no one seems to fill. And I think, looking back, I was always unknowingly searching for a piece of you in them. When I met someone new, someone I connected with, I'd look into their eyes, searching for a spark, a depth of understanding that felt familiar. Like the bond I imagined we would have shared. I wanted that pure, unconditional connection, the kind that only family, especially a twin, could truly give. And when I couldn't find it, the disappointment was always there, a quiet ache in my soul. He remembered past loves, friendships that had faltered under the glare of fame. He had given his heart, but perhaps he had asked for too much for a connection that only an absent brother could provide. It's hard, brother, to know who to trust in this world I live in. Everyone wants a piece of Elvis. They want the fame, the money, the excitement. Very few people, I've learned, want the man underneath it all. The man who sometimes just wants to sit on the porch and talk about nothing. The man who misses his mama and daddy and a brother he never knew. Your memory, Jesse. It's always been so pure, so untainted by the phoniness of this business. You represent innocence, a simple truth that stands in stark contrast to the often superficial world I navigate. When I'm surrounded by people who are only interested in what I can do for them, I think of you, and it grounds me. You remind me that there's a world outside of the bright lights, a world of genuine love and honesty. I've tried to be open to share my feelings, but it's difficult. How do you explain to someone who hasn't lived it what it's like to carry the weight of an unlived life? How do you tell them that a part of your soul feels like it belongs to someone else, someone who isn't even here? Most people just wouldn't understand. They'd think I was crazy or just being dramatic. He confessed his deepest fears, his vulnerabilities, the things he never spoke aloud, even to his closest confidants. There are nights, Jesse, when the doubts creep in. When I wonder if I'm doing enough, if I'm honoring the life you didn't get to live. Am I truly living for two, or am I just living for myself, caught up in the madness? I worry about getting lost, about losing the core of who I am, amidst all the demands and expectations. And in those moments I reach for your memory, a silent anchor in a turbulent sea. I sometimes imagine you older now, maybe in your 30s, like me. What advice would you give me? Would you tell me to slow down, to enjoy the quiet moments? Would you tell me to trust my gut, to listen to my heart? I feel like you would. You'd be the one person who truly knew me without judgment, without wanting anything in return. And that, Jesse, that's a comfort I've searched for in every face, in every really found. He sighed, a deep, weary sound. The truth would fill that particular void. The very act of acknowledging that search, of writing it down, felt like a release. He was no longer carrying this burden alone. He was sharing it with the one person who had been with him from the very beginning. The one who understood without needing a single word, his brother. Elvis's hand ached, but he kept writing, delving into the darker side of his dream, the sacrifices and the moments of profound despair. The letter was becoming a confessional, a raw outpouring of his most guarded feelings. Touring, recording, making movies. There's always another show, another song, another script. Sometimes I feel like I'm on a treadmill that never stops and I can't get off. My body gets tired, my voice gets weary, and my spirit gets a little chipped away piece by piece. He recalled the dizzying pace, the lack of privacy, the constant demands on his time and energy. It was a life of privilege, yes, but also a life of profound limitation. I wonder if you would have approved of this life. Would you have seen the joy in it, or only the relentless demands? Would you have told me to slow down, to take a breath? Sometimes I look at the old photographs of us, of Mama and Daddy, in that little shack, and I miss the simplicity, the quiet moments, the freedom to just be. I traded a lot of that for this whirlwind life, and sometimes I wonder if it was worth it. There have been dark times, Jesse, times when the loneliness was so deep, it felt like a physical pain. When the pressure to be Elvis Presley was so immense, I felt like I was suffocating. Times when I questioned everything, when I wondered if I had made the right choices, if I was truly happy. I've had moments of despair, brother, when I wanted to just walk away from it, all disappear and find some peace. He remembered nights when he felt utterly lost, despite being surrounded by people, by fame, by fortune. Those were the times he wished most fervently for Jesse's presence, for a quiet understanding, a pure connection, untainted by the world of celebrity. I've made mistakes, Jesse, big ones. I've hurt people and I've been hurt. And in those moments, when I felt like I was failing myself, failing those I loved, a part of me felt like I was failing you. Too, failing the promise of living for two. It's a heavy guilt, a weight that settles deep in my bones. Sometimes I just want to sit and talk, really talk to someone who understands the boy from Tupelo, not just the man on stage. Someone who knows the quiet dreams I had, the fears I carried. Someone who wouldn't judge, wouldn't ask for anything in return, just listen. And always my mind drifts to you. You'd be that person. You just listen, wouldn't you? It's not all bad, of course. There are moments of pure magic when the music takes hold, when I connect with the audience and it feels like I'm truly doing what I was put on this earth to do. And in those moments, I still feel a flicker of your spirit, a warmth that reminds me I'm not alone, that this journey however wild, is still somehow shared. He closed his eyes, taking a long, shaky breath. The raw honesty of these confessions was draining, but also cleansing. He had laid bare the vulnerabilities, the disappointments, the deep-seated weariness that came with being the king. He had exposed the crushing reality that even the most glittering life could hide. Profound sorrow, but as he opened his eyes, he felt a subtle shift. The darkness, though acknowledged, didn't feel as overwhelming as before. Tiny sliver of light, of acceptance, was beginning to pierce through the gloom. Elvis felt a profound shift in his spirit. The catharsis of pouring out his heart to Jessie was beginning to work its magic. The weight, though not entirely gone, felt redistributed, shared, and with that came a new perspective. A realization that Jessie's presence wasn't just about grief, but about guidance, purpose, and an unbreakable bond. My dearest brother Jesse. As I write all this down, Jesse, laying bare all the fears and sorrows and the crushing weight of what might have been, something is happening. I'm realizing that you haven't just been a source of quiet grief in my life. You've been a constant, unwavering presence, a light, even though you never got to shine in this world. I'm starting to see it now clearer than ever before. Your brief existence, those few precious hours, they weren't meaningless. They gave my life meaning. They instilled in me a drive, a sense of purpose that goes beyond just my own ambitions. It's like you were the catalyst, the spark that ignited something extraordinary in me. And for that, I am eternally grateful. He recalled moments throughout his life, small nudges, inexplicable feelings of certainty, sudden bursts of courage. When he needed them most, he had often attributed them to luck or instinct. But now, with newfound clarity, he saw Jesse's hand in them. Remember when I first started singing gospel in church? The way those harmonies just wrapped around me, pulling me in. I always felt like there was an extra voice, a perfect note, just out of reach, guiding me. I think that was you, brother, singing along, your pure spirit adding to the music. And when I took that leap of faith walking into Sun Records with just a few dollars in my pocket and a head full of dreams, I was scared. There was this calm, this conviction deep inside that told me to go for it, to take the chance. Was that you, pushing me forward, whispering that it was time? I think it was. Through all the madness of fame, the endless touring, the demands, I often felt overwhelmed. But there were always these moments of clarity, these flashes of quiet strength that pulled me back from the brink. A sudden feeling of peace, a reminder of what truly mattered. I realize now that those were your touches, your unseen hand, guiding me, reminding me to stay true to the boy from Tupelo. To remember my roots, he paused, a gentle smile touching his lips. The guilt, the why me and not him question, hadn't vanished entirely, but it was softened by a profound sense of gratitude. Jesse wasn't a burden, he was a blessing. You taught me, without ever speaking a word, the preciousness of life. To live each day fully, to embrace every moment, because it's a gift that can be taken away in an instant. You taught me compassion, empathy, to look beyond the surface, because I knew deep down that everyone carries their own unspoken burdens, their own missing pieces. Your life, Jesse, though tragically short, was not in vain. It shaped me. It made me who I am. Every note I sing, every smile I share, every kindness I offer, it all has a piece of you in it. You are woven into the fabric of my being, my silent partner, my eternal twin. And knowing that, truly knowing that, brings me a peace I haven't felt in a long, long time. You're not just a memory, Jesse. You're a part of my present and my future. You're the reason I keep striving, keep giving, keep singing with all my heart. Because I'm not just singing for me. I'm singing for us, for the life we share, even across the divide. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. The ache was still there, but it was no longer a wound. It was a scar, a mark of a deep, abiding love. The crushing sorrow had given way to a profound sense of connection. a heartwarming realization that Jesse was not gone, but eternally present, a guiding light in his extraordinary, complicated life. The letter was nearing its end, but the conversation he knew would continue forever. Elvis read through the pages he had filled a lifetime of unspoken thoughts laid bare. The journey had been arduous, a painful unearthing of old wounds, but the destination was peace. He felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted from his soul. He dipped the pen one last time, ready to bring this profound conversation to a close. "My dearest brother Jesse, I'm coming to the end of this letter now, but I know this isn't the end of our conversation. Not really. It's just the beginning of a new way of acknowledging you, of carrying you with me, not as a source of sorrow, but as a source of immense strength and endless love. Writing this has been a revelation. It's like I've finally been able to speak to the deepest part of my own heart, the part that always held you so close. I've said things I've never told another living soul, things I barely admitted to myself, and in doing so I've found a peace that I didn't know was possible." He thought about the burden of living for two that his mama had instilled in him. It had once felt like an obligation, a heavy responsibility, but now he saw it as a profound blessing, a unique purpose that had shaped his every triumph. "You see, Jesse, you are not just my deceased twin. You are my eternal twin, the one who came first, the one who paved the way, the one who gave my life an undeniable purpose. I may have been the one to take breath, to walk this earth, but I know deep in my soul that I've never truly walked alone. You've been with me every step of the way. A silent, loving presence. I promise you, brother, I will continue to live for both of us. I will continue to pour my heart into my music, to strive for greatness, to touch as many lives as I can. And in every song, every performance, every moment of kindness, I show a part of you will be there. Your spirit will shine through a testament to the brief but powerful life you had. I will carry your memory, not as a heavy cross, but as a guiding star. You are the purest part of me, the untouched innocence that reminds me of where I came from and what truly matters. And knowing that, truly feeling that connection makes the loneliness feel less sharp, the silence feel less empty." He signed off his hand, steady now. A profound sense of calm settling over him. "Always and forever, your loving twin brother, Elvis." Put the pen down, the last word echoing in the quiet room. He folded the pages carefully, pressing them flat. He didn't need to mail it, didn't need anyone else to read it. This letter wasn't for the world, it was for him and for Jesse. He had opened a channel, a direct line to the brother, who had always been just beyond reach. He stood up, walking over to a beautiful carved wooden box on his desk, usually reserved for important papers or small trinkets. He opened it, revealing the velvet lining. With a tender gesture, he placed the folded letter inside, closing the lid with a soft click. A profound sense of relief washed over him, a feeling of completeness he hadn't experienced in years. The quiet of Graceland no longer felt empty or crushing. Instead, it felt peaceful, filled with the echo of his own heart and the quiet, comforting presence of his eternal twin. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, a quiet joy that glowed from within. He had found his peace not by forgetting, but by truly remembering, and by finally speaking to the brother who had shaped his extraordinary life. King had connected with his true self, and in doing so, he had truly found his way home.